We're told to not brag, we're told to be humble, we're told to not take up too much space. And so what ends up happening is as women, we try to play small. Confidence is not something that we think our way into. It's actually something we do. The confidence you're looking for is a byproduct of specific types of actions. I overcompensated so aggressively to give myself any aspect of confidence, and that was because no one could possibly say a bad thing about me, my service, my brand, if I busted my butt and every customer was right in every moment. Confidence is not the absence of fear. It is about the presence of trust. You got to remove that as the reason you're not going to get where you want to go. Because the thing is, if you need everything to line up, you're never going to do. Hello and welcome back to Ambitious. Today, we are talking all things confidence. This is something as a topic that so many people, including myself, want to understand better, which is how do those entrepreneurs who are so wildly successful have the confidence to just seem like they can run through a wall. They're so determined, they're so committed, they're so clear and confident in what they're doing, how they're going to do it. And it just seems like they have this level of trust and inner knowing that you wonder, how do I tap into that? What is that? What do I need to do to have that level of confidence in myself and my own business? And one of the things that I've learned is that there really is call it a science to better understanding how to really tap into that level of confidence, that level of conviction. And one of the things that I've found and discovered, even in my own journey and with many clients that I've witnessed who've become very successful in business, is that confidence is not something that we think our way into. It's actually something we do. And the confidence you're looking for is a byproduct of specific types of actions. And I want to today really unpack what I would consider and kind of, use as the term, the confidence gap, which is really how do we go from where we are right now in our current, ways in our life, in our business, and start to really tap into this bigger level of confidence to be able to go for the things that scare the crap out of us. Maybe for you, it's starting a podcast. It could be doing a speaking engagement. It could be the fact that you want to charge that new price you're looking for. It could be the confidence to show up maybe as a leader or a brand or a face in this online space or in your business in a very specific way. But you lack a little bit of confidence to go for that. And listen, I've been there, which is why after witnessing so many incredible entrepreneurs who are so wildly confident, ask myself, okay, how the heck do I tap into that? Because that's something that I know will really unlock things for me. If I can tap into that level of confidence, I'm basically going to become invincible with my goals and with progress. And so today we're going to break all that down. So I actually want to kind of really unpack what I mean by the confidence gap. So the confidence gap is actually going to refer to the discrepancy basically between our competence, meaning the actual skill or ability that we have to do something, in comparison to confidence. Why I really wanted to dedicate an entire episode like today to this is because this is actually different amongst women than it is amongst men. Because we really, as women, are oftentimes underestimating our capabilities of what we feel that we can actually do. And so, because of that, we lack confidence. And when we lack confidence, we lack intentional action, we lack movement, we lack progress in areas that we could do it. But because we don't believe we're competent or that we have the capabilities to do so, we don't take action and we don't move. And so there was actually a study that I wanted to unpack, and this kind of like blew my mind, if I'm going to be honest. And it basically was the Hewlett Packard study. And basically what it found was that men, this was in the context of applying for jobs, but men apply for jobs when they meet 60% of the qualifications for a job. Whereas in contrast, women typically only apply to a job if they saw themselves meeting 100% of the criteria. So what this study basically kind of looked to conclude, or what it really showcased, and what it tells us even today as we talk about confidence, is that we are holding ourselves back as women, not because we can't do certain things, not because we don't have the confidence, not because we don't have the capabilities potentially, but because we believe that we have to, in our mind, for some reason, meet every single standard first before moving, first before taking action. And so it's really not a lack of ability for us to do the things that we want to do. Because you and I, frankly, have a lot of abilities, a lot of capabilities, a lot of competence in many different areas. But if we do not believe ourselves to be competent, if we don't believe ourselves to be capable, it is the core thing that is keeping us from going for big things, both in our life and within our businesses. And so we want to ask ourselves, obviously we see, again, that contrast, right? If men look at something that they want to do and they don't have all the criteria to do it, 60% of them will still move forward. Whereas in contrast, women need 100% of the criteria met to be able to move forward. So why is that? And I started to ask myself, as women, why do we sometimes lack confidence? Where does it come from? So if we're struggling with confidence in a certain area, again, in our life or in our business, why is that? Where does that kind of originate? And when I started to unpack it and I started to really think through and kind of, brain dump, okay, well, if we want to be confident women, what needs to be rewritten? What needs to be better understood or changed or altered to help us to tap into that? One of the things that, at least I will speak for myself, that I have even seen and felt is this aspect of culture, right? So as women, we are, from a cultural perspective, we're told to not brag, we're told to be humble, we're told to not take up too much space. And basically, what this internalizes for us is that it really teaches us not to be attention seeking. It really teaches us that, it reinforces in us that confidence is really almost this aspect of arrogance. It connects our confidence to arrogance because of these cultural, messages and norms that have kind of been placed on us. And so what ends up happening is as women, we try to play small. We try to, be not too loud or not shine too bright in a specific room. Not to take up too much space and to remain humble and don't brag and don't boast and all of these things. And I see this with women in my world all the time. There's women who will have these massive wins and these massive milestones that they're achieving in their life and their business, but they don't want to talk about it because if they do, they feel like they're taking up too much space or they're not being humble. And as women, we're like, oh no, we're taught by society that we're supposed to be humble and we're supposed to be, centered and calm and not to brag or not to take up too much space. But what we don't probably ask ourselves enough is, with all of that programming and with all that messaging that we've been given since we were little girls, how are we going to rewrite that? How are we going to decide whether that actually does, in fact, feel true for us? And so the reason I mention young girls and when we were little is because this is also something we see in the education setting, right? So when we are growing up, we are trained to act correct and not to be courageous. Now, obviously, as our, for myself, I'm 32. And so my boomer parents were very much the start, in my opinion, of like really integrating within us this feminist movement of the fact that we could be courageous and that we could start to, test out new things and take up more space. But again, there still was a good majority of society that was teaching us the opposite, which was that, even in school, girls were often rewarded for getting things right. So like getting the right answers on a test, getting the right answer when there was interactions within class, and for following the rules and for basically being diligent within the classroom. Whereas boys oftentimes were more rewarded for like risk taking and assertiveness and kind of like putting themselves out there. And so what we started to take from that is when we're kids, we're starting to see that me making a mistake means me failing. And so that creates another deep ingrained belief in us, right? Is the fact that, confidence is based off of certainty. It's not based off of potential success. So again, the certainty of success, not the potential of success. And so in entrepreneurship, we see this all the time. We look for these situations where we feel like we need to have everything perfect. Everything has to be dialed before we can act or before we feel confident enough to be able to move in the thing that we want to do. And I will say that when I was kind of growing up, especially for myself, we've talked about in other podcasts, the fact that when I was in, elementary school, I discovered that I had a learning disability. And when that happened, it really killed my confidence because what it meant is that like I was even more prone to taking action that was not going to result in the right or the certain or the correct outcome. And so I think that when we start to think about how do we become more confident, it's important for us to look at where does that come from? It comes from culture and society telling us not to take up space, to basically, to be honest, be more humble and with that more dialed in. Second, we learn in school a lot that the fact like our value is going to come from not how courageous we are or how, out there we are, but more the grades that we get, the correctness, even the aspects when you think about it as women, the emphasis that we had on being polite, right? Or like doing the right thing and saying the right thing or taking the right action at the specific time. It's all this ingrained correctness that really, frankly, puts a lot of boundaries and bumper lanes on us to not necessarily always tune in to what we feel we need to do or what we feel we want to do. And the other thing that is also a huge factor in our confidence to do things is the reality of our past experiences. And so for some people, they have, traumatic past experiences of rejection, for example. They might have, as a result of that, rejection sensitivity, meaning that you have a really heightened fear of being misunderstood, or you have a really heightened fear of being judged. And so because of that, you don't take risk because you believe that if I do take this thing and if I do put myself out there, I've been ridiculed in a way before that I don't want to relive again. I've been rejected in a way before that I don't want to do again. And it can be something simple. It could be the fact that when you were in high school, you decided that you wanted to dress a certain way or do your hair a certain way or hang with a certain group of people. And that made you become ridiculed or judged or even at the more extreme extent, bullied. And so then when you think about now you as an adult saying, hey, I'm going to go against the grain and I'm going to disrupt this industry, you take that understanding of that childhood experience. You take that understanding of what you've gone through and you show up and you say, I don't know if I want to disrupt the space. I don't know if I want to rock the boat because I remember that feeling in my mind, in my body of what that felt like when I last thought that was a good idea and it didn't work out for me. Or if you maybe have taken a risk before in something that you've wanted to do and you failed, or you feel like it didn't turn out the way that you had anticipated, that can scar us. It can create these wounds within us that tell us that we don't want to feel or experience or think that again. And so because of that, it leads us to, show up in a very different space. And so what I will say is past experiences of being dismissed or past experiences even of being, overlooked can really cause people to overthink every single move that they're making. Ask yourself, when's maybe an experience that you've had in elementary school, maybe it was in high school, maybe it was in college or university, and you felt dismissed, you felt overlooked, you felt judged, you felt that you didn't fit in. And then you think about trying to flex that muscle now, and those feelings come up for us. We know, even from our other trauma episodes we talked about, that trauma is stored in the body, right? We have these memories that are stored in our brain, in our subconscious. We have these memories that are stored within our bodies. And so we think as business owners and as entrepreneurs, as women, that we're like, oh, I just can't seem to figure out why I'm not doing the thing. The top thing I hear all the time is women saying, I know what I need to do, but I'm just not doing it. And I can't figure out why. And this is why we talk about these things. This is why we want to unravel where is it coming from? Because so many of us have programming, have beliefs that were given to us from experiences or from others around us. And we take those with us into adulthood. And then we start to wonder, okay, well, why are my actions not what I want them to be? That's because your beliefs are not really something that correlate or that match the actions that you're wanting from yourself. And so that's really where we need to start in order to kind of create this harmony between the two sides. So, the other thing that I will say is if your nervous system has learned that being bold means also it's connected in some capacity to danger, you're going to always try in some capacity to shrink yourself. And what I mean by boldness doesn't have to be anything extreme. It could even be potentially that you grew up in a household where you feel like if you were outspoken and if you really shared some big beliefs or some big thoughts, that they were not received well. It could be potentially in your friend group that was the case. It could be boldness to say that you wanted to do something that was a big performance, for example, in high school in front of your class, and you felt judged. I remember the first, instance that comes up for me is I remember I was in elementary school and we had to do speeches, and you had to go in front of the entire class and basically have your memorized speech and you had to present it. that for me, I remember like it was yesterday. It was so much anxiety for me and it was so overwhelming. And then when I got as an entrepreneur into public speaking, guess what came up? I wasn't thinking about public speaking. I was thinking about me in grade 7 or grade 8 doing this speech in front of my class and struggling through it because I was so nervous. And so then when I started to go into public speaking as an entrepreneur, I thought, uh-oh, because like for most people, public speaking is one of their core number one fears. And here I am saying that and I knew that I had the potential. This is the thing. I knew I had the potential to be a good communicator because I'm a good communicator on my own. Meaning, if I'm talking to you here, or if I'm talking to you in a one on one setting, or even in a private group setting, I'm good. For some reason, when you put a stage underneath my feet, I freak out and I have this body feeling that's extremely overwhelming. And what I recognized was that feeling had nothing to do with the stage. Because frankly, the first stage I ever spoke on, I had never spoken before. So I had no context to what was going to happen. I had no context to what was going to unfold. Would it work? Would I do well? Would I not do well? None of that I had context of. What I did have context of is the last time that I had spoken in front of a group of people, which was me in grade 8 who was struggling through this speech and the feeling I remember vividly that I had doing that and how I did not want to feel that again. So it really became an invitation for me to look at how my past experiences or how have other situations that had parallels to this thing that I'm struggling to have confidence in, how are those influencing me in this moment to not show up in a way that I want to for myself and also for my business? And the other one that I will say is a huge one is this idea of like internalized perfectionism, and most importantly that we see with a lot of entrepreneurs is imposter syndrome. Perfectionism really is, in my opinion, a mask that is over top of this fear of being inadequate, right? So when we want to get everything perfect, like for me, I remember again going back to the first speaking opportunity I had. I remember working on the slides like over and over and over. I remember rehearsing what I was going to say when I got on stage and the first couple words that I would say to the group. And I remember wanting to make it perfect and spent hours and hours and hours trying to edit and refine and adjust to make it perfect. And what I came to realize was the desire to make it perfect was to protect myself from judgment. And even now, it's something that I see with myself. Anytime I catch myself trying to make something perfect, I go, whoop, this is something for me that is actually my effort to protect myself from judgment. And so you may, in your business and in your life, be right now trying to make a certain thing perfect, a certain offer perfect, a certain brand perfect, a certain pitch perfect. And people really dive into the nuts and bolts to make it perfect, perfect, perfect. Because if they do, there's this perception that by making something perfect, we're protecting ourselves from judgment. When we think about perfectionism, we want to realize that perfectionism is really a mask that is to cover up the true fear that we will feel inadequate, that we will feel judged, that we will feel rejected. Okay. So, if, for example, you have imposter syndrome, it's basically telling you that you don't belong here. And also with that, that you're going to be exposed. Again, speaking for some reason has been one of the things that I've learned a lot of confidence over in the last little bit. It's been the most confronting, most obviously confronting for me. And I remember I went to go speak at an event and there was another speaker and I said to him, am I'm like freaking out that I have to go on stage with this person because I said to him, you are like the Jeff Bezos of marketing. He's an incredible marketer. And because of that, I was also going on stage to talk about marketing before his talk on marketing. Great. So here I am, somebody who I would consider in comparison to him is like a baby entrepreneur, and I have to go on and I have to talk about marketing at this event. And so I remember I had insane imposter syndrome. Like I was like, who the heck am I to talk about this? Who's going to listen to me? Why does anyone even care what I have to say when he's going to be on stage? And it was because at the time I basically believed, and I had this deep rooted belief that when I got on stage and he got on stage, people were going to see the contrast between our two points of view and our two topics. And with that, start to realize that I don't belong here and basically that I didn't belong on stage or that I didn't have enough value to contribute to warrant my place on like the roster that day. And I thought, they're going to listen to me. And then an hour and a half later, they're going to listen to him and they're going to realize I don't know anything compared to him. And this is how I felt. This doesn't mean it was true. This is how it felt. And so I remember saying that to him. And he said, I actually don't know if you saw me, but I took notes on your presentation. And I'm like, notes on what? And he's like, you talk about different stuff in marketing. You have a different level of skill and mastery than I do in areas that I just don't have. So I took notes on the resources you shared and some of the frameworks that you taught today. And I said to him, I was so nervous to present in front of you because I know the level of expertise and education and impact basically that you have. And I remember he said to me, he said, listen, you're not nervous because you don't deserve to be up there. You're nervous because you care. And I remember that shifted everything for me because what it meant is I really cared that the audience and the person listening to me got value. I didn't really necessarily care about people's perceptions. And that nugget that he gave changed everything because it meant when I then went to go speak in front of people who might be, call it quote unquote more qualified than me. Maybe they've been in business, 2 decades longer than me. Maybe they are somebody who has I don't know, almost 8-figure company. And I'm going in and I'm talking to their communities. It's not because I have imposter syndrome because I don't belong. It's actually a matter of the fact that I care about the people in the audience and what they need to hear to feel value and to feel impacted. And so I want to note from this is that when you're struggling with being confident, I want you to give yourself a little break and recognize that you've had a lot of beliefs that have been given to you about when you're allowed to be confident or when the right time is to be confident. It could be that, again, from society, you've been told you should only be confident when you're confident, but make sure you're humble, and you're confident, but don't take up too much space. And you're confident, but don't be too loud and too much of a presence in the room, right? So we have that impact. We've got the school system that taught us when you should be confident, which is basically when things were correct, right? So we had this ingrained belief that if we got things correct, then we had everything we needed to feel confident about the thing that we were doing or moving forward. And then you've got, these past experiences of moments when you maybe thought you felt confident and you initially going in were really, gung ho about it. And then by the end of it, you felt rejected and you felt dismissed or you felt that it didn't go the way that you wanted. And it questioned whether in the future you should be confident in yourself again. And so we carry all of this with us. And so this bleeds into our business every single day. And frankly, it probably bleeds into other things in your personal life every single day. And so we want to ask ourselves, what is the cost of lack of confidence? Like, what is it actually? And having these, maybe deep beliefs in you somewhere that we haven't maybe unpacked yet, or we haven't taken time to really unravel, what is that actually creating in you? What is that causing you within the business? What's it costing you? And so I want to break down some of the things that I note that this costs women when it comes to seeing the lack of confidence in their business. One of them is definitely by far people who have a lot of missed opportunity for revenue. I see people who miss out on revenue of launches, they miss out on promoting an offer, they miss out on, putting something out to the world or even selling something because there's this belief that it needs more work, it needs to be perfected more, it just needs a little bit more time. And that's really, again, because we lack the confidence to put it out and to open ourselves to judgment. When I see somebody that I work with who is constantly, I just want to do a little bit more to the emails and I want to go a little bit back through the content and I just want to do one more round of feedback. And like they're constantly kind of in this feedback loop. They think, and you may think, that feedback is this belief of, oh, well, I really care about the product and I'm making it really good. Well, there's also a very fine line between you're making a good product or you're making a good piece of marketing. And then there's the conversation of, is that actually bottlenecking you from progress? And if it is, that's more in the perfectionism territory, which really means that you are constantly obsessing over making something perfect because otherwise you have to face the potential of rejection or the potential of being dismissed in some capacity. And that in itself scares you. So because of that, you miss out on potential revenue that could come into your business. I also see people who are drastically underpricing themselves because you don't actually truly believe in your value. You don't feel confident in truly who you are and what you provide and what you can do for a client. And so, because of that, you have been told by reinforced outside things, meaning you go to pitch your price. You say, I'm going to charge $2,500 for this package a month, or I'm going to charge $5,000 a month for this package. And you've had a couple people who you've talked to who have not gone through with that, who have quote unquote rejected that price. So what you do is you internalize that and you say to yourself, oh, well, see, people don't see my value at this dollar. So I'm going to keep myself small at this current price point because that's what everyone else is comfortable with. And this goes back to our idea of being bold, taking up space. What would it look like if you actually committed to charging the price that you've already been ruminating on upping your prices to? And I know that because I talk to every single entrepreneur who's like, yeah, I'd really like to get my pricing to here. And I'm like, great. Why? What's the disconnect? Why are we not there? What would need to happen for that to get there? And the interesting part is oftentimes they find all these other things because really what you're looking for in creating refinements to your offer or you're creating refinements to something else, you feel the need to tweak something. The reason you're doing that is because you're trying to give yourself evidence. You're trying to give yourself reason enough to say, oh, now I can increase my price. Now I have a reason to be confident. Again, let's remember going back to I get it correct. If I get all the correct pieces in place, then I have what I need to increase my price. That's the problem, is that we are believing that everything needs to be in a certain place before we can do something about it. I'm also seeing this in burnout. When I work with entrepreneurs who are burnt out, and even myself, I will be honest, this was how this showed up for me and how the confidence kind of snuck its way into my business. When I was really burnt out, it was because I was overcompensating. And that was because I didn't believe that unless I was like completely just like breaking my back for people in every single moment, that I was enough. I wasn't allowed to have space. I wasn't allowed to have boundaries because I believed that my value, it was in quote unquote over delivering. And so what it did is it broke me because it basically meant that I was getting my confidence from all of these people praising me and reinforcing to me that they were happy with my over delivering. And so what ended up happening is it reinforced, okay, great. This is where I get my feedback. This is where I get my validation. So what did it do? It caused me to lean more and more into over delivering. It caused me to go and lean more into extra hours and extra support and extra calls and extra accommodations. And that was not because the clients needed it. It's not because I even really, in fact, needed to offer that. It was because it gave me a level of confidence from them that I was good and that they were raving reviews. And so, because of that, I couldn't handle at that time the rejection or the dismissal of anyone having a single issue with me. So what I did is I overcompensated so aggressively to give myself any aspect of confidence. And that was because no one could possibly say a bad thing about me, my service, my brand, if I busted my butt and every customer was right in every moment. And so burnout can also come from over delivering. And that's to really ultimately make up for a lack of confidence. And the other thing that I see with scaling businesses specifically is that they will get their business to a place and then they plateau. And that is because they are so comfortable in a certain stage where they're at and they can't fathom the confidence they need or the perception they need or the identity that they need to get to that next level. They just don't really see who they would need to become or they don't really see what's needed to tap into that next level of success. And so what it means is you end up behind the scenes because if you have to step forward, if you have to step up in order to step up your business to increase your business, it means you're going to have to be seen. It means you're going to have to really be putting yourself out there. And again, that takes a level of confidence. And so what people do is they stay where it's safe and they have a business that's at a certain revenue level where they feel like they can easily generate, for example, leads and sales there, and they take that and they hang out there. They hang out at that plateau. They hang out at that level because that's the place where confidence is not tested. And once the confidence gets tested, that next level of your business, and you know what that is for you. that next thing that you're being called to do, that next offer, that next way of showing up as a brand, that next way of showing up maybe differently as a leader. It could be with your team. You're being called to a new level of the way that you show up as a leader in any of those buckets. And because that stretches you, it requires a level of confidence from you. And because you have to flex that confidence muscle, you're not doing it, which causes you to stay in the plateau of where your business is at today. So there's the tangible costs in the business that we see, but there's also the intangible, which is the fact that you will lose self trust. Okay. So every time that you break a promise to yourself that you're going to go for it, like, have you ever had those moments where you're like, I am just going to do that scary thing and I am just going to put myself out there and I am just going to really step into that next level? And then you go and you're close. And maybe again, back to the price point, maybe you have a sales call coming up and you're like, this is the call that I am going to pitch this new price and I'm going to step into this new level of basically compensation for me and for my business. And then the call happens and the call is there. And before you know it, you are like, I can't pitch this price and I don't feel confident in this price and this is not the right move for me. And you start to get overwhelmed and you retreat. You lose self trust. When you go for certain things and you don't commit and you don't see yourself commit to the things that you once said you cared about, what it does is it actually creates a lack of trust within yourself. One of the fastest ways to create confidence for anybody is to actually set a commitment to yourself and to follow through with it. Because what it does is it reinforces in your identity that you were the kind of person who keeps commitments that you make, not only to other people, but also to yourself. And so connected is also this other aspect by not flexing this confidence muscle of the erosion of your self-worth because you know that you are deferring your potential. Okay, so I want to take a quick little brief interruption from today's episode to let you know about something really exciting. And I want to first preface there is nothing here that I have to sell you. This is about something that is entirely free that I think would be a massive support for you if you are someone who's loving all things ambitious podcast. So, we have created an absolutely incredible community that is called the Ambitious Network. This is really a place where coaching and masterminds meet high level networking of other women who are just like you. So, a little bit of what you can anticipate this is a place for you to grow, to connect, and ultimately to get the support that you need to elevate your business. And so, some of the things you can anticipate inside number one, live hot seat coaching. This is literally live coaching in the way that I would do inside of our masterminds and our different offers, only inside of this community, entirely free. You'll also get the opportunity to get access to exclusive giveaways that are not available anywhere else. So, these are things like giveaways of different books and resources that I'm obsessed with that have really helped me in my journey of business, but also things on a larger scale, like some of which have been 6 months of private coaching type of giveaways. So, all of this to be said, massive, massive amount of resources being given inside, and also trainings and resources, tools of frameworks and downloads and worksheets and masterclasses that are going to be things that will really help to take you and your business to the next level. Now, it's also not just about me. I have an incredible network and a community of other entrepreneurs who also want to give back to you if you've loved their interviews and their discussions on the Ambitious podcast. So, we have guests that are also providing resources in the community that will only be available inside the Ambitious Network. But there's also the networking aspect. And this is a place for you to not only connect with other women about what's going on in your business, what's currently working or not working in today's current market. It's a place to share wins, but it's also a place to connect with me and get my feedback and support for you and your business. Now, all of that to be said, this is as I said, mastermind meets networking. And I really have created this as a community that I want to be something you've never gotten anywhere else. It's not this low ticket membership that you feel like you're paying for, this graveyard of resources that the person has that they don't know what to do with. And it's also not that Facebook group that you're inside of that you feel like you get tons of notifications, but you don't really want anything that's inside of it. It all feels surface level. We want to give you the ability to have mastermind meets high level networking all in one place. And the Ambitious Network is where you're going to find that. So, how you can get inside. If you want to go to the show notes beneath, you can click a link to join us inside the Ambitious Network. And if you also want to connect with me on Instagram, I'm also happy to chat with you about it. So, if you DM me the word ambitious, we'll be sure to chat a little bit more about the network for you and give you the link to get inside. So, all of that to be said, I don't want to take any more time away from today's episode. So, without further ado, let's get back into the show. I don't know if you've ever felt this way, but I know there's certain aspects of my life. For me, this bucket is health. Like, I can push in business no problemo. Like I have no problem doing the scary thing, spending the big money, taking the big action, being seen, all of that in business to me, easy peasy. But the interesting thing is in health for some reason, meaning like with my fitness, with my nutrition, that part for me is where I constantly feel like I'm deferring my potential. And so for me, that's something that I'm working on a lot right now in this season of my life, which is to not defer my potential. So what I mean by that is there's an area in your life right now where you know you could be playing bigger. There's an area in your life right now that you know you have more potential and you're not even close to where you know you could be. There's an area in your life where you have a goal and it's so crystal clear who you could be and how you could do it and what it would look like, but you're terrified because there's a certain level of confidence that would need to come from the belief to go for it. There's a certain level of confidence that would be needed in the actions that you take to go achieve it. And there's a certain confidence in yourself that you could do it. And so what ends up happening is we know and we're so crystal clear on this level of potential of who we could be, and yet we don't go for it. Why? And that's because of confidence. We lack confidence in could be the belief, could be the actions, could be the outcomes. But what that does is when we know our potential and we don't have the confidence to really go for it, but we're still deeply aware that we could be bigger, we could be doing and moving and executing in bigger ways, it erodes our self trust. It completely, piece by piece, moment by moment, decision by decision, belief by belief, erodes the trust you have in yourself. And as a business owner, what that does is it causes you to lack trust in other areas. If you know that you have potential to do something and you have all the resources to go into it to achieve it, but it would mean you had to apply yourself and you don't, that sits with you in a way. And I don't know about you, but I feel like for me with my fitness journey, I got to a place where I was like, enough is enough. Like, if you have this potential to go do this, one of the things I recognize is like, there's no one coming to save me but myself. So, like, I was having an internal battle with me because I'm just like, I wanted to just eat clean and I wanted to move my body. And I knew that I could have a certain level of strength. I knew I could have a certain level of fitness. I knew I could have a certain level of aesthetics. And I was like, listen, I can't go for this because it just meant that I was going to have to show up in a confidence in my belief and a confidence in my execution every single day. And I wasn't ready to do that. But what it did is it killed my mindset because it instead left me with the guilt of knowing what I could be and who I could become and what I could achieve, and also consciously not actually doing that because it crushed my trust in myself. And so the other thing that that creates is also the fact that you have resentment and you have regret. And sometimes this is within yourself, but sometimes this is also within others. Like, have you ever watched someone? Again, I feel like for some reason for me, this doesn't show up as much in the business world, but it shows up in the fitness space for me. I feel like I would watch people who would go live these healthy lifestyles. Or for you, you might be watching someone who's crushing it in business and you're seeing people do what you want to do and you're seeing people have the life that you want to have and you feel resentment and you feel this like regret that you didn't take the action, or you felt this regret that you didn't live bolder, or you felt this, resentment that you wish that could be you. And what that is because you're watching other people, when you really distill it down, take risks that you fully know you're capable of. And that's where I got with the health and fitness. I got to this place where I was sick of watching, you know, myself have the same goal every year for my birthday. I'm like, this is the year that I'm going to be the most fit. And I'm like, great, that was my goal 3 years ago. And I got so frustrated with myself. And I got so frustrated watching other people do in 6 months sometimes what I had been trying to do in 3 years. And so there became this level of frustration that caused me to be like, enough is enough. You have this level of potential. You have this level of who you could be and how you could show up and how you could take space, and you're not doing it. Why? Why? And so when I sat with that, it really became I was disconnected from the deeper vision. I was disconnected from my true potential. And I did it intentionally because when we have this awareness of who we could be, And when we don't tap into it enough, it starts to become this distant vision, right? When we're really tapped into our potential and we're really clear on what we want and how we want it. I don't know about you, but I've had these moments where I'm so crystal clear in my vision of what I want for my life and for my business that I'm like, go, 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 go. Like I just, as I said, run through a wall because I'm just so committed to it. But when our vision is outside of us, when our vision is distant from us, when our potential is out there, it's not here, it's out there, and it's not too close for me to have to really see and face, it means that it becomes easier for us to not take risk. It becomes easier for us to not do the big, bold thing because it feels like this distant thing that's out there. I don't have to worry about it right now. And what I realized was when I started to really connect to my vision, when I connected to who I want to be in my potential, i.e., physically think about bringing your vision closer to you, bringing your potential closer to you. And what that looks like is talking about it every day, thinking about it every day, looking at who you could be and what it would look like and how would you operate and the beliefs you'd have. When you live in parallel with your vision, with your potential every day, you're also going to find that you cannot play it safe as much because it's so close to you. We play safe oftentimes because we believe that our vision and our potential is out there. It's in this distant thing in the future. It's in 2 years, it's in 3 years, it's in 20 years of what I'm going to do. But what if you embodied that today? And what if you got closer to that today? What would that look like if you lived your life in parallel with your potential every day? And as soon as you started to feel that distance of it getting away, you pulled it closer again and you got right back in tune with it. What is the vision? What are the beliefs? What are the actions? And that helps you to not get into this rut of playing it safe. And so, what we want to really unpack as entrepreneurs, and again, for anything you're trying to achieve in your life, is that you can actually be competent to do something, but still lack confidence to do it. And I want to be very crystal clear about this. You can have competence to do something, you can have the capability of doing something, but still lack the confidence to do it. And this is where most high achieving, most high level, ambitious women are getting stuck is the fact that you have competence and you have capabilities in certain areas in your life, in your business, but you lack confidence to do it. You lack confidence to show up in that way. And because of that, you're holding yourself back. Competence, the capability is a skill. Confidence is self trust. Okay. So I'm going to just really slow it down for you. Competence, your capability, is a skill, many of which I will tell you right now you have that you are not using. And the reason you're not using those skills, the reason you're not using those capabilities in your business, in your life, is because you lack confidence. And what that means is that you have the skill, but you don't have the self trust to actually do something with it. And that's why you're lacking the results in your life and the results in your business. Because you playing small, you not taking up more space, you not going for the big thing and achieving these massive goals and ambitions is not because you don't have the capability. It's not because you don't have the competence. It's because you don't truly at your core. And this is the first step is literally understanding this and having an awareness of it. I don't have the self-trust. Like for me with my health journey, I knew the macros. Like I knew what to eat. I literally used to write workout plans. I knew the workout plan. I knew the macros. I knew all of these things. I had the skill. It wasn't a matter of me not having the blueprint. It wasn't a matter of me, well, how much protein do I eat? That was not the reason that I wasn't fit. It was because I didn't actually trust myself to follow through. I didn't actually trust myself to succeed. I didn't trust myself to be able to navigate what happens if it didn't work. What happens if I didn't make the progress the way that I wanted to. I didn't trust myself to take the journey. Confidence is not a matter of you waiting for all these skills to get to a certain place and then we move. It's not a matter of you waiting for all these capabilities and all this competence to reach a certain place before you do. Because the thing that we know is that we have to bridge the gap. So, the confidence gap, as we talked about earlier, we have to bridge the gap through evidence building. And basically, what it means is that confidence is not the absence of fear, it is about the presence of trust. Okay. So confidence is not about the absence of fear, it is about the presence of trust. And I will tell you that perspective has been the heart of so many things in my entire business. The first step in even starting this business, I had zero evidence. I could have focused beyond fear, and I really had to lean to the fact that I had to trust myself that I was going to find a way to do it. I was going to find a way to make it work. I was going to find a way to create movement. It wasn't about the fact that I had also all of the competence. I really, in some areas, probably didn't have a lot of competence, but what I did is I had trust in myself. I knew I was a hard worker. I knew I would figure out problems. I knew I had overcome adversity in the past. I'd found a way along the way to make it happen and that I found a way to move through it. And with that, I realized that I am never not going to be scared. And this is, I think, the biggest misconception around when people say to themselves, well, how do I tap into that? And people ask me, how do you become so confident to do what you do or to like invent new things or to show up in the way that you do? And I tell people every day, it has nothing to do with lack of fear. I'm scared all the time. Like all the time. I want to be very clear. I don't not fear in my business. I fear things all the time. I fear being judged. I fear being rejected. I fear failure. I fear, making the wrong move. I fear the impact of what it will do for me or for the people on our team or any of that. I fear all of that. But underneath it all, I trust myself. I trust myself to navigate it. And I trust myself that even if everything completely burned to the ground, I will be fine. I trust myself to be able to adapt along the way and to learn things that will help and become the skills that I need to help me to do what I need to do. And I also trust that I have to be in a constant place of learning. And sometimes learning something means that you have to be able to feel scared and do it anyway. Think back to when you were a kid and you learned how to swim. I remember going to swimming lessons. They would like line us all up in our like little floaties and whatever on the side of the pool. And they would say, we want you to jump into the water. And like the water was like 5 feet deep. Obviously, I'm a munchkin at this point, right? But I remember the water was like 5, 6 feet deep. And it felt like the biggest thing. Or like going down when you were a little kid on the slide felt like, oh my God, I'm so scared. And you're so crazy nervous and fearful. And then you do it and you get, again, you trust yourself to just 3, 2, 1, go down the slide or 3, 2, 1, jump off and do the dive into the pool. And you do it and you go down the slide. And what's the first thing you do once you pop up out of that water? You're like, again. Because what you've done in that moment is you created this loop of I feel fear. I have self-trust that I will navigate it. I believe in me. I don't believe in the situation. I don't believe in all these other stories. I don't believe in all these different scenarios. But what I do believe in is me. And then you go and you do and you act. And I will tell you 9 times out of 10, you're going to get evidence that's going to help you to be like, again, back on the slide, back for another dive into the pool. You start to build confidence because you did the thing. But what most entrepreneurs want to do is they want to bypass that whole process. You're like, no, I want to have a prediction before I go down the slide of what it's going to feel like, how it's going to go, what will the water feel like, and how am I going to feel after I'm done. I want the entire experience broken down for me. That's not how this works. And if you are waiting for someone to break that down for you, then you are going to constantly stay stuck in your business. And you're going to, frankly, stay constantly stuck within your life. One of the best skills that I learned was to trust myself. And so back to my speaking experience that I mentioned, when I first went on stage to do speaking, and I've told this story before, I'm pretty sure. If not, this might be the first time you're hearing it. The first time that I got asked to speak, I remember truly like wanting to fake COVID because I was so nervous. And again, fear just all over my body. I literally thought I was going to poop my pants. I was so nervous. My stomach turned as it does when you get nervous. I started to sweat. I was like, my heart literally felt like it was going to beat out of my chest. And they call my name and they're like, okay, like, welcome Kate Perkovic to the stage. And I'm like, ah. And I go up and I blacked out. And I don't even know what I said. I have no idea what I taught. I have no idea what I said. I just like was not present in any way because I was so full of anxiety and fear. And I get off that stage, still kind of in blackout, to be honest, not really in tune with my body just yet. And I get off of stage and everyone's like, that was amazing. I took so many notes. And I remember we went on our first break and I had a line of people who came up and started asking me questions. And it was the most like weird, humbling experience because I was like, who wants to listen to me? Why am I on the stage? Why am I credible? Does this make sense? And yet, here's all this evidence to say that what I feared the most, the thing that I was so terrified to do, I have all this evidence now after it's done telling me that it was great and it was amazing and I crushed it and all of these things. And so when that happened, I took that and I sat with it and I really integrated it because I realized I'm going to get asked to be on another stage again. And when I do, I'm going to feel so nervous and all these feelings are going to come up again. But I'm going to anchor into the fact that this is what I trust. I trust myself to navigate it. I trust myself to do the hard thing. I trust myself that regardless of how it goes, I'm still going to show up and I'm going to do it. I trust myself that I'm not going to try to, retreat. Again, classic fight or flight was like, I was like, get me the heck out of here. I don't want to do public speaking. Never mind. I changed my mind. And I remember doing it. I said, like, to myself, I have to trust myself that when I want to run, I have to run toward the thing that I'm terrified of. Because that day taught me that. That day taught me that if I had ran that day, I would have missed out on an incredible experience. I would have missed out on an amazing impact for an incredible room of people. And I would have missed out on something that I really ultimately deep down wanted. And that was my potential. Fast forward, I've since then spoken at many different events. And with that, I remember the next stage that I went on to, same feeling happened. The feeling started in my chest and I start to have this sweating feeling and I start to have these nerves. And I'm like, okay, here it is. Here it is. Again, remember back, it's not the absence of fear, it's about the presence of trust. And so I'm in this moment and I'm having this, oh my gosh, okay, here's the fear again, here's the fear again. And everything in my body is like, don't do it. Ask if you can make it shorter, like do anything basically to fight or flight. I was out. I was flight. I was out of there. And I was like, I gotta get out of here. I gotta get out of here. And I said, remember, trust yourself. You had this last time, you crushed it. You have this time, and you're gonna crush it. And there were so many things that could tell me that that wouldn't be the case because the next speaking event that I went to, they asked me to speak about my personal story. And I had never been that vulnerable in front of a room of people that I didn't know. And so because of that, I was like, oh my God, this is different. This is different. I made all these reasons why it wasn't the same. But the trust in myself is the difference because I do scary shit all the time now. I do scary things with certain price points. I do scary things with putting myself out there. I do scary things like sharing the ending of a long-term relationship and leaving an engagement on social media. That was terrifying for me. Terrifying for me. And the fear was there, but I'm like, I trust myself that this is the right thing that I need to do because I trust myself that I want to be connected to my audience and I want to be real and I don't want to be inauthentic right now. And so I trusted myself to share that. And again, the response, even from that, of so many amazing women that I connected with, was only because I trusted myself. So again, it's not about the absence of fear, it is about the presence of self trust to do the hard thing. And I want you to just take a second right now and ask yourself, what is that thing? What is that thing for you right now that you know you want to do? You know you have potential to become or to do. You have something in your heart, on your mind right now that you know is the next level of your potential and you're not doing it. And frankly, that's because you're scared. And there's a lot of different reasons why you can be scared, but truthfully, none of that matters. What I want you to instead ask yourself is, even with all those things being true, even if you gave me, you're like, Kate, I'm going to give you 75 reasons why this is terrifying and I shouldn't do it. Okay, great. I'm going to listen to all those and I'm going to say, okay, amazing. And do you trust yourself to navigate it? Do you trust yourself to make a decision? Can you, at the end of the day, be left with yourself and feel like I got me? And if you do, and if you can, then that's the invitation that now is the time to move. You're waiting for that list of 75 things to go away before you take action. And I'm here to tell you, they're not going to go away. They're always going to be there. Whether you check now, in 6 months, 12 months, or in 2 years, or in 10 years, it does not matter. You are still going to find reasons to be scared. You're still going to find reasons to be fearful. I do it every single day. But the reality is, if you trust yourself, you can push through that. And you can 3, 2, 1, go. I trust me and I trust I've got it. regardless of what happens. And I want to share something with you. I had one of my past mentors. I had, built the business quite large when he was mentoring me. And I had said to him, I'm really just worried that I'm going to lose it all. And so I didn't really want to build it bigger because I didn't want to I didn't want to continue to grow to a certain place outside of where I was, because I thought, what if it fails? What if it burns to the ground? What if it dies? And so he said, okay, great. That's your fear. And I said, yes, like I'm definitely afraid of the fact that that could happen. And so he said, okay, great. Let's just play in that for a second. So what would be the worst thing that could happen if your business failed and like could completely burn to the ground? And I'm like, well, I don't want to think about that in that way. And he's like, well, just entertain me. What would you do? And I was like, well, I'd be really sad. And then I would probably go get a serving job again and make money, and I'd start a business again, or I'd go work inside of someone else's business and start the business again. And so what we did is we pulled this thread and we really created this like very specific painted picture of what would happen if I failed. And I lived in that and I sat in that and I pictured that. And I was like, if I failed, what would it look like and how would it show up? And when I did, I realized even if the worst case scenario happened and my business burnt to the ground, I trust myself at such a deep level that I'm just going to go build another business. It's not going to mean anything. I'm just going to go trust myself to go do it again. And so when all of that came up, it made me realize that it all still, at the end of the day, comes back to me. It all just comes back to me. So what I want to do is I want to actually share some things for you to consider of how you can build confidence, because confidence is something that you have access to. You do not need to, again, wait for competence to happen. You don't have to wait for your capabilities to happen or get to a certain place before then we press go. Confidence is about the fact that you can actually build it. It's not just a performance. Okay. So you're not performing as confidence. You're actually living and breathing and building confidence. So, first is you have to take one brave next step. You have to do something that creates and builds belief. The thing that I see is that so many of you will look to say to yourself, I want to have reason to be confident before I do. And I will tell you, you got to remove that as the reason you're not going to get where you want to go. Because the thing is, if you need everything to line up, you're never going to do. So ask yourself, what is something right now that is a brave next step that you could take to give yourself and create yourself some momentum toward the goal that you have, the potential that you know is possible for you? Because that is something that will help to give you evidence. Just like me, it's a matter of that small step. For me, the small step was not running out of that room where I had my first speaking opportunity, getting on stage and saying, like, this is a step toward my future. I'm not committing to being a public speaker for the next 2 years full time, but what I am doing is I'm getting on this stage in this moment right now. And so I want you to think of what that thing is for you. What's that brave next step of the thing that you know that you could do or that you need to do, but you're not doing? That's important because we need micro actions to give us momentum. And the momentum comes from the fact that you had the fear, you trusted yourself, you did it, and now you have evidence that you did it. All of that builds the trust bank inside of you. And what that means is as we take all those micro actions and we're building all that trust inside of us, what ends up happening is when that next fear comes, that next resistance comes your way, you are not even nearly as rattled by it because you're like, well, that is scary. Yes, but I have all this self-trust that I've built. When you have no evidence of self-trust, you're going to ruminate because you have nothing to anchor to. But the thing I'm here to tell you is you will never have anything to anchor to. You'll never have anything to anchor to as self-trust if you don't start to build it within you. And that comes from taking those micro actions, those micro steps every single day. With that, your evidence is going to be when your confidence becomes your proof. Okay. So the evidence is impactful because your confidence becomes your proof. It becomes sourced from this proof that you've built. So you start to think about tracking your evidence of all these things that you've done. And that becomes your insight into your capabilities and what you're, as an entrepreneur and in your life, truly capable of. You can reflect on challenges you've experienced. You can reflect on risks that you've taken. You can reflect on results that you've created. You can reflect on all the things that you've done. And I remember even in the earlier parts when I first started my business, I didn't get my confidence from my business because I didn't have any confidence in my business. I had no business. Like, it was really, I was a baby entrepreneur. But I had to take it from other things. And I thought to myself, okay, well, I was told that I, when I was younger, had this learning disability and that I would never, basically be able to get into school. But then I did get into school, and I was told that I would never, get a degree in anything, but then I ended up getting it in social work. So I had all of these things that I started to anchor into, be like, that was not supposed to work, but it did. That was not supposed to work, but it did. And so what I did is I started to build this resource of trusting myself. And, even for me, this is not even just in business, but in personal too. I have so many personal things that I've navigated. I've overcome very difficult times of mental health. I have overcome very difficult endings of relationships. And I've become okay. I've been okay at the end of it. It was hard, it was difficult, but I've become okay at the end of it. And so I anchor into those to be like, if this relationship is ending, and it feels like my world is ending and it feels like this is going to take me out, that's a valid feeling. But it also showed me that there were other moments that felt that way in my life, that I thought, this is it for me. And this is like going to wipe me out, basically. And then when it came up again, I was like, well, I do remember having that in this situation and it didn't wipe me out. And I ended up thriving after that. And so I anchor into those to realize the same thing can be true today. I can still feel like this is the walls caving in. I can feel like my world is ending, and I am still potentially in this going to be perfectly fine. Because I have gone through and as you've gone through some tough shit. You've gone through some difficult things, and you've overcome those. And so let's anchor into that. Even if you don't have the anchor in your business, anchor into it in the things you've gone through in your life and how you've persevered and you've overcome those. That same strength is available to you to resource and to anchor into today within your business. Do it. And I know this is the most simple thing to say, but do it scared. The idea of fear has to be eliminated. Fear doesn't need to be eliminated, it needs to be regulated. Okay? Fear is not to be eliminated, fear is to be regulated. To have confidence is not, again, the absence of fear, but is the presence of self trust. We are not going to look to remove fear. That day when I was speaking, I was not looking to remove the fear. My heart was pumping, I was sweating, all the things were happening. That was not going to change. That was not something that adjusted. But what I did do is I closed my eyes, I took deep breaths, I got outside, got my face in the sun, I regulated myself. Because what that did is it allowed me to tune back in and to realize that I can see and experience all the fear, and it's not going away, but I get to determine my experience of it. This on a more extreme example, when they train, for example, people in the army or in the military, they have to allow their nervous systems to be comfortable around a lot of stimuli of fear. And so, what they're taught is to regulate in these chaotic, fear based environments. If they were like, well, we're not going to act until everything feels like it's safe, we'd be a little bit at a tough place, because it means that you can't act. It means that you can't move in any capacity. Instead, what they're taught is tools to regulate and to stay calm, as a paramedic would, as a cop would, in any situation, to stay calm in the most heightened, the most intense experiences that could be in front of us. And the same thing is true for you in those moments. Even though it's not maybe the same situation, the feeling can remain the same in our bodies. It's fight, flight, or freeze. So in that moment, it's going to feel like you're being chased by a bear. And it's your job to learn tools that work best for you to be able to regulate that feeling that's happening inside your mind and inside your body. And so the other thing that I will also say is that if you are someone who does not feel like your self-trust is quite solid, you feel like you've thought about past business experiences and you don't have a lot to anchor into, and maybe you have some things in your life personally that you've thought about, but you don't really feel like that's a lot to anchor into, what I want to invite you to is to borrow belief from people around you. There's been so many moments in my career as an entrepreneur where I had no belief in something. I didn't believe I could charge a certain price. I didn't believe that I could do a certain thing. I didn't believe that something would sell. I have all the same fears that you do. I have all of those. And in those moments, I tap into my own self-trust. And at certain moments when I felt like my own trust was low, or maybe I felt like it was depleted in some way because I'd been going through whatever, I lean on my environment and I lean on my peers, and I would call in people that I consider to be my advisors to give me and borrow their confidence in me. I would have them speak into me to be like, "Kate, you have done this, 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 and this. You can crush this. This is going to be easy. You're going to blow it out the park. You're going to crush this." I would need those messages at times. And I would need them to remind me of things that maybe when I started to go into my own trust bank, never came through for me. Right. So when I started to think about, oh, well, I can't do this. And someone says, remember, 2 years ago when XYZ happened? And I'm like, oh, yeah. And they're like, yeah, this is the same situation. You got this. And I'm like, I got this. Okay. So like I wanted to talk about this too because I don't want it to feel, and I think this is sometimes how it feels when we watch entrepreneurs that we admire. I also don't want it to feel like people believe that like I'm just crushing confidence all the time. Like I'm just like I'm forever confident, I'm never scared, I'm always crushing. Like it's not that way. It's just not. And that is because fear lives in all of us in some capacity. We all have hesitations, we all have resistances. The difference I will say now is number one, how they show up is changing. The length in which they exist in my body and my brain is very minimal compared to what they used to be. It's very quick processing because I've learned regulation, I've learned my self trust bank, I've learned how to lean into advisors. With practice and reps, I am getting much quicker at being able to tap into my confidence in moments where maybe initially, automatically, it wasn't there. And the same thing is going to be true for you. And so, what I will say is that I want you to remember that confidence is really at its core, confidence is self trust, but confidence is also a memory. Confidence is the ability for you to tap into the times when you moved, when you acted, when you did the hard thing, even when the circumstances, the environment, the extent around you was hard or was difficult. You did it anyways. And so I want you as a piece of homework, if I could coach you right now, I would want to give you as a piece of homework to ask yourself, how are you building up that bank? How are you building up more and more evidence, more and more memory of the fact that you have confidence and that you're doing the hard thing and that you are pushing yourself? The people that you watch, the people that you admire as business owners are no different than you and I. We all have fear. We all have hesitation. The difference is there's some people who are controlled by it and there's some people who live with it, meaning that they know how to work in harmony with it. It doesn't control them. It's still there. So you still have those thoughts, maybe you still have those moments, but they decrease. And when they do come up, we feel much more in harmony with it than feeling like it completely controls us and therefore bottlenecks our beliefs, our actions, our outcomes, and our behaviors. So let's also look at, is there a way for you to practice more courageous action daily? Can we start to build that trust bank, build that evidence bank daily so that you have more to anchor into in the moments when you feel like you don't have confidence and you don't trust, that you can lean into those and say, but I have evidence of A, B, C, and D. And that today I'm starting to build and add to. So I have something to tap into in those moments where I'm not feeling confident. So today was all things confidence. I hope today was helpful. This was really something that I started to think to myself, in moments where I've needed insight or where I've needed support, what was the thing I lacked? Most of the things that I've achieved in my business have all been on the other side of fear. And people ask me all the time, how are you so confident in things? And truthfully, I wouldn't say that I am the most confident in things. I would say that I create confidence like nobody's business. And that's through the different things that I execute. It's through the different things that I create. It's through the different pieces of evidence that I collect and make for myself every single day. And just as I do that, you have the ability to do that as well. So I hope today was helpful. As always, you guys know that I love to hear from you. So if there's anything that landed today, maybe a line that landed, a quote that landed, or maybe you want to even share and be witnessed in that next big action that you plan to take, within your business, within your life, that next thing you're going to do to really step into the confidence and the self-trust you have. If you want to also pop that over to me in the DMs, I would love to hear it. And I would love to be able to share that with you. So all of that being said, thank you so much for spending time with me today. And as always, stay ambitious.